Senator Bernie Sanders will soon be introducing a new criminal justice reform bill next week, according to The Hill. Now, in a statement today, Sanders says, quote, "My legislation will eliminate federal, state, and local contracts for privately run prisons within 2 years." Now, that's amazing, and I'll get to that more in depth as we go on here. But first, he continues, it will reinstate the federal parole system. It will increase oversight and eliminate the overcharging of prisoners by private companies for banking and other services. He also said that it would, quote, "end the mandatory quota of immigrants detained. It will require ICE to improve the monitoring of detention facilities and eliminate private detention centers within 2 years." So this is some important stuff. Even though all the details aren't released yet, already this sounds incredibly progressive, which is great. Ending for-profit prisons would be one of the most amazing things, one of the most important things that he could do. There are just some things that companies should not profit from, and incarcerating human beings is one of them. Now, he added that we need bold change in our criminal justice system. We need to end the tragic reality that the United States has more people in jail than any other country on earth, and that the people being incarcerated are disproportionately black and Hispanic. Now, according to the Sanders campaign website, more than 8% of those incarcerated in state and federal prisons are in facilities that are privately owned. So 8% of people are in for-profit prisons, where there is a profit motive to fill the beds. And most of those detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, are being held in these private facilities. Do you get that? A lot of the immigrants that are arrested for coming across the border go into these private prisons, these for-profit prisons. Now, this is disastrous in several different ways. For one, this gives incentive to politicians funded by these for-profit prisons to not fix our immigration system. Meaning that every time some undocumented immigrant comes over the border and gets caught, which they inevitably do, many of them, these prison companies end up making a profit from holding them. Remember, a lot of these for-profit prisons sign contracts with the states where the state pays them to hold people. That's still taxpayer money going to these for-profit prison corporations. How else do you expect that they get their money? How else do you think that they get paid? By holding people in there that the state wants held. And in a lot of cases, it ends up being undocumented immigrants. Now, right here, I think this is a good example of money in politics. Now, everything sort of links back to this. Now, even if you don't care about immigrants, which, as the rise of Donald Trump has shown, a lot of people don't, you should at least care, because this is the fact that these politicians will take legalized bribes from for-profit prison corporations to keep them supplied with undocumented immigrants. And they do that by not fixing our immigration system. And that fact should make you livid, because at the end of the day, you are still paying for these undocumented immigrants to be housed in these prisons. Your tax money is still going to them. That should make you, even if you hate immigrants, that should piss you off. It should piss off everybody, to be honest with you. Now, Bernie Sanders, speaking of politicians, Bernie Sanders is pretty much the only one that says he's going to end the for-profit prison industrial complex. Not Hillary Clinton, certainly not Donald Trump, not Martin O'Malley, Lindsey Graham. No, nobody but Bernie has said that I'm going to eliminate for-profit prisons. Now, you might be thinking that it's pretty unfair of me to lump Hillary Clinton in with Donald Trump and Lindsey Graham, right? But you'd be surprised to know that some of the top lobbyists on behalf of the for-profit prison corporation industry have been raising money for Hillary Clinton. For this, I go to First Look Media. Li Feng wrote an article about this, now saying that lobbyists for two major prison companies are serving as top fundraisers for Hillary Clinton's campaign. Quote, Richard Sullivan, the lobbying firm Capital Counsel, is a bundler for the Clinton campaign, bringing in about $44,859 in contributions in just a few short months. That's a significant amount of money. Now, Sullivan is also a registered lobbyist for the GEO Group. What is the GEO Group? That is a company that operates for-profit prisons, including some of these immigrant detention centers, to which they make a lot of profit. Fang continues. Well, first, before I get on to Fang, for those who don't know what a bundler is, according to Fang, bundlers collect contributions on behalf of a campaign and are often rewarded with special favors, such as access to the candidate. That's a very, very important point. Now, he also found that 5 Clinton bundlers work for the lobbying law firm Aiken, Gump, Strauss, Hauer, and Feld. Corrections Corporation of America, the largest private prison company in America, paid Aiken Gump $240,000 in lobbying fees last year. The firm also serves as a law firm for the prison giant representing the company in court. Now he continues. One of the things this law firm has done, and this is according to a disclosure from Aiken Gump lobbyist and Clinton bundler Brian Popper, previously helped CCA defeat efforts to compel private prisons to respond to FOIA requests. So if you want to know the conditions inside of a for-profit prison, and you want to do that through a Freedom of Information Act request, well, you can't do that. Because these bundlers helped stop that. Helped stop efforts to allow these for-profit prisons to be subject to Freedom of Information Act requests. And this is a bundler to the Clinton campaign. I thought you're all supposed to be about transparency, about holding people accountable. Well, in the case of for-profit prisons, that's not true. That's not true. All right. Now, all these lobbyists have raised a considerable amount of money for the Clinton campaign. Now, the fact that they've raised so much money for her, in our political system, do you think that, honestly, she won't be doing something special to pay them back? It's not as if, oh, we believe so much in you, Hillary Clinton, here's some money. And this isn't just for Hillary, this is for all politicians that take legalized bribes. You think that if you give somebody money, that you're doing it just because you believe so much in them? No, you're doing it for favors. You're doing it for access. This is how Washington works. This is how politics works in America. It's an amazingly corrupted system. And when it comes to Bernie Sanders, well, this is what Sanders wants to end. Not just the for-profit prison industry, but also this culture of legalized bribery. Now, for example, unlike pretty much any other candidate in this field, Bernie Sanders refuses to take corporate money. He just won't. He takes small donations and donations from unions. Those are his top donors, unions. And he has also called to overturn Citizens United. Now, I think Sanders can do more. To be honest, on the money and politics front, Sanders can do a lot more. I'm a fan of Bernie Sanders. I'm feeling the burn. But even so, I think he can do more. He can support a 28th Amendment to the Constitution. A 28th Amendment that will overturn Buckley-Valeo. You know, Buckley-Valeo is the decision from the Supreme Court that essentially said money is speech. And then afterwards came Bellotti versus First Bank, or First National Bank, that said that, well, corporations, if you limit their donations, you're limiting their free speech. So one builds off the other. Well, you have to tear both of those down, as well as Citizens United, in order to really get free and fair elections. That's what you have to do. That's what the 28th Amendment would do. I want Bernie Sanders coming out and saying 28th Amendment to do all of these and to publicly finance elections. Now, that would, of course, replace all corporate and union spending with publicly financed elections. That would ensure every candidate, and this is what I want, it would ensure every candidate gets the same amount of money and the same amount of exposure. And then you let the people decide. Oh, that's such a radical idea, letting the people decide. But that's what I want. Now, you might not agree with my solutions, but I think most people, whether or not you agree with public financing of elections or money being speech, most people agree with the problem that 84% of Americans think that money has too much influence in our political campaigns. And to tie this back to criminal justice reform, to Sanders, to Clinton, to immigration, all of this is tied back together by the influence of money in politics. So I just kind of want to end by going back to the beginning, kind of circle back around here to the beginning. By proposing to get rid of for-profit prisons, Bernie Sanders would be making a huge first step in solving the issue of mass incarceration. And I think that's a bigger step than any of the other politicians have proposed. And it's a great place to begin. But I think the real problem that has to be addressed is not just Citizens United, but all of the decisions that have led us to our system where money rules all of our elections. We need to overturn that system, and we need to get an amendment to the Constitution. My, of course, pick would be the Wolfpack Amendment, but choose one. There's plenty to go around. There's plenty of different amendments that go, that goes further. The Wolfpack Amendment goes the farthest, and there are some that don't go quite as far. But support one of them. Because if you're one of those 84% of Americans that feel like money has too much influence, maybe it's time you should do something about it. And you can get your voice back in our democracy.